Hello, welcome to What to Do While You Wait for Developmental Disabilities Waiver by the ARC of Virginia. This presentation is especially for people who are on the Developmental Disabilities Waiver waitlist and their family members. In this presentation, you will learn what the processes and the steps are for applying for the waiver, and we will talk about some of the resources and supports that may be available to you, especially while you're waiting for a waiver. This is actually a time to be active. The ARC of Virginia is a state chapter of the ARC of the United States, which is the nation's oldest and largest organization of and for people with developmental disabilities and their families. The mission is to promote and protect the human rights of people with or at risk of developmental disabilities and actively support their full inclusion and participation in the community throughout their lifetime. Here's a little overview of what we're going to cover in this presentation: the DD waiver application steps and processes, the role of the individual and family, the waiver assignment process, services and supports available while you're waiting, and the importance of being educated to advocate and to tell your story, and how you can ask questions that may not get answered in this presentation. When you applied for the Developmental Disabilities Waiver, did you know what the services and supports are that are available in the waiver? We find that very often people don't know what the different types of waivers are and what the services are that are available to them. But on this link you see here, if you go to that link, you will be able to find a listing of the DD waiver services and the descriptions of what those services are in the waiver. So, a good source for you to have available to you. To get a DD waiver and to get on the waiting list, the first thing you did was contact your local community services board and request a screening for the Developmental Disabilities Waiver. To be found eligible for a Developmental Disabilities Waiver, a person must have or be at risk of a developmental disability or a developmental delay. And then people are screened with an assessment tool that's called the VIDES, Virginia Individual Developmental Disabilities Eligibility Survey. The VIDES assesses the functional dependencies that a person has for everyday activities such as dressing, eating, communication, health, living skills, compared to a typically developing peer. One of the most important takeaways for you to have from this presentation is that the child or adult's functioning is to be considered as if there are no other services or supports in place. So that means that the child or adult has no parents, no other helpers, technology, no caregivers, no babysitters, or anyone to assist with the activities of daily living and the questions and the areas that are explored in the VIDES screening. We find that most people do not understand that this is how they are to assess their own or their child's functioning when being screened for the VIDES. It is an aha moment when they realize that they have not described their functional skills in the context of having no supports or services available. So think about how you or your family member would perform if there was no one else with them or with you at home or in the community. Now here's an example. Let's think about taking a shower. There are numerous steps from the beginning of taking a shower to the end. It starts with knowing that you need to take a shower, and it goes all the way through finishing the shower, being dried, and getting your clothes back on. So think about all those steps that are involved. Does someone really get their hair washed properly? Do they get all the soap out? Do they stay in the shower too long? What type of assistance do they need? And so for all the skills and tasks that are asked about on the VIDES, you want to think of the person as having no supports or services around, and think about from the beginning of a task to the very end of a task, and what types of support you or your family member may need. You may prepare for the VIDES screening by obtaining a copy of the VIDES before the screening and reviewing it in advance, so you will be prepared with the information you need to provide. The VIDES is a deficit-based assessment. That means that the focus is on the challenges, the weaknesses, or the inability of the child or adult to perform basic everyday activities. This is the day that you focus on what help is needed by the person throughout the day and the night. No sugarcoating. And it's really not fun to talk about yourself or to talk about another person in terms of the things that they can't do or the things that they need help with. And while the screener must lay eyes on the individual, it is not necessary that the child or adult be present for the entire screening. You may want to also write out information and provide it, excuse me, and provide it to the screener so that the child does not have to hear what they need help with or what they have problems with and the challenges they face. Always request a copy of the completed VIDES. Review it and check it. If you have any questions or you think you left information out, contact the screener again and let them know. Whenever there are changes in your situation or your child's situation, you want to be in touch with the Community Services Board to update the VIDES. While you're on the DD waiver waitlist, it's very important that you take an active role to keep the Community Services Board informed of changes that are occurring. We're now going to talk about the priority level determination, which is the next step that occurs when a person is screened. Once a person is found eligible for the DD waiver because they have a diagnosis and because they met the criteria on the VIDES, everyone is determined to have a priority level of 1, 2, or 3 on the waiver waitlist. This is based on the person's urgency of need for services so that they can live successfully in the community and not become at risk of losing their community placement. The individual or family should review the priority level determination criteria prior to or at the time of the screening and discuss with the screener what priority level describes their situation. At this time, it is important for the family and or primary caregivers to make sure that they have told the screener of any health conditions, financial burdens, or other situations that may be impacting their ability to provide care. The individual who is seeking services, if able, should also make known any concerns they have about the supports and caregiving they need and what's important to them in their life. A person's priority level may change at any time due to changes that may occur with the individual, their circumstances, or their caregiver. It's really important for you to report the changes when they happen because that may affect your priority level. People in priority level 1 are the only people that are considered when waivers are available to be distributed, or as they say, assigned. So people in priority level 1 are considered to have the greatest need. And next we'll move on to talk about what priority level 1 means. So there's a lot of text on this screen right here. So as you just heard, you've met the criteria. There are 4 possible criteria that are now met to determine what your priority level is in priority level 1. If you meet any of these criteria in priority level 1, then you would be rated as a priority level 1 person. If there is an immediate jeopardy to the health and safety of the individual due to the unpaid primary caregiver, that's usually a parent or a family member, having a chronic or long-term physical or psychiatric condition that significantly limits their ability to care for the individual, and there are no other unpaid caregivers available to provide supports. Or there is an immediate risk to the health and safety of the applicant, the primary caregiver, or other person living in the household that, excuse me, due to either of the following conditions. The individual's behavior or behaviors present a risk to himself or others that cannot be effectively managed without other supports that may have been arranged but did not provide the support needed, or if there are physical care needs such as lifting or bathing or medical needs that cannot be managed by the primary caregiver, even with support coordination or the case manager having arranged generic or specialized reports. The supports, or the individual lives in an institutional setting and has a discharge plan to move back to the community, or the individual is a young adult who is no longer eligible for school services or IDA services and is transitioning to independent living. After individuals reach the age of 27, this shall no longer apply. So that means once you reach the age of 27, if you have not received a waiver, and if you do not meet any of these other possible criteria, then your priority level could be changed probably to a priority level 2. So let's talk about once you're on the waiting list, and there might be a little good news for you. There are some services that are available to you when you're on the waiting list. The Individual and Family Support Program, or IFSP, provides direct financial support to individuals or families on the wait list. The goal of the program is to provide support so that the person can continue to live in the community. Once a year, the IFSP program has an open application period where applications are accepted, and this is on a first-come, first-served basis. A wide range of supports or services may be requested, including things like recreational activity fees, camp fees, respite care, adaptive equipment, even rent or mortgage payments. If you are interested, be sure to sign up for the important program updates that are put out by the IFSP program. Look for announcements about the application period in the next few weeks. This usually happens at the end of the summer. Individuals who are on the DD waiver wait list and those who have a DD waiver are eligible for housing rental assistance programs. The programs provide financial assistance for rental costs. For people who want to live independently but don't have a DD waiver for supports, they must have other adequate supports so that they can live safely. For example, if the CCC Plus Waiver or other natural supports are available, then they may be able to get the rental assistance and start living independently with supports until they get a waiver. This is also available when you do have a waiver. The website that's there, the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services, has oodles of information, and there's even a housing team there at DBHDS who can provide information and help people plan for living independently with supports. If this is something you want to look into, contact your case manager at the Community Services Board. Another service that you might need or be able to access is case management or support coordination from the Community Services Board while you're on the wait list. The Community Services Boards vary in the level of case management that they are able to provide, and they may have specific requirements about when they can provide case management to people on the waiting list. But if you have an urgent need or your health and safety is at risk, contact your Community Services Board to see if there are resources that could assist you during this time. Okay, now we're going to get back to the waiver process and what happens next. So if you're in priority level 1, here's what happens. If you're in priority level 1, then the case manager assesses the urgency of a person's need. The critical needs summary looks at the level of your need and the level of risk for losing placement in the community. A set of criteria on the critical needs summary is rated and produces a score reflecting how great your need is. You may review the critical needs summary and discuss the criteria on this form with your case manager. At this time, you will also want to discuss the supports and services you need and look at the waiver services to identify the services that will immediately meet your needs. Request a copy of the completed critical needs summary and update it when changes occur. This critical needs summary score is used to identify individuals with the greatest urgency of need when waivers are available. Those individuals with the highest scores are considered for waivers. But very importantly to know, the score is relative to others in your individual community services board that are rated as priority level 1. There is no set score that makes a person eligible to be considered for a waiver when they're available. As with every document, you should request a copy, and when it is completed, review it and make sure it is accurately reflecting what your needs are. The CSBs have waivers to assign when there are new waivers funded by the Virginia General Assembly. They also have waivers available when people are no longer going to use a waiver, when people move out of state, when someone dies, or for some other reason, such as they don't need the waiver anymore, they aren't eligible any longer, then that waiver becomes available in that community services board to be reassigned to someone else. At the times waivers are available, the Community Services Board looks at the people with the highest scores on the critical needs summary. Please note, remember that the scores are relative to others in your Community Services Board. There's no set number to be eligible. Depending on the number of waivers available, the individuals with the highest scores, because they are at the greatest risk, are going to be reviewed by the Waiver Slot Assignment Committee. The case manager prepares the waiver slot assignment review form for each person that will be reviewed by the committee. You may request to help prepare the information that will be included on that form and ask to review it before it goes to the committee. That's your choice. It is recommended that you ask your case manager to inform you if you are going to be considered by the committee in advance. And by this time, you should know which waiver services you need and which of the 3 different types of DD waivers will meet your immediate needs. At this time, the type of DD waiver the person needs is considered. There are no names or identifying information that is included on the form that goes to the committee. The committee is composed of community members who have no vested interest in the selection process, and they may not be current members of the Community Services Board, and they may not be staff of the Community Services Board. And again, you know what I'm going to say, keep a copy of your forms. So now we're just going to do a quick recap of the DD waiver application process that we've talked about. First of all, you have to be determined eligible, and that was determined by your diagnosis and whether you met the criteria on the VIDES. Next, once you're on the waiting list, then a priority level determination is made. And that priority level, either 1, 2, or 3, that may change at any time, and only people in priority level 1 are considered for waivers. If you're in priority level 1, then a critical needs summary will be done, and that assesses your urgency of need, and it results in a score. Once there are waivers available, the Community Services Board will look at those individuals who have the highest scores on the critical needs summary, and a group of them will be selected to be reviewed by the waiver slot assignment committee. So that ends our section on the waiver application process. If you need help navigating this waiver process, because it is quite confusing, it can be very overwhelming, there's lots of words, different form names, et cetera, the ARC of Virginia is here. We provide individual consultation and trainings like this to help guide you through the waiver process so that you are well informed. You may feel free to contact us by email, info@thearcofva.org, or give us a call, 804-649-8481, extension 104. So, what next? You are waiting. And again, as I said earlier, this is a time to be active. You're going to be keeping in contact with your CSB at least annually or whenever changes occur. You want to prepare, collaborate with your case manager, review and update your waiver application materials. Stay informed. Keep up with what's going on with waivers. Regulations change, processes change frequently. Being a part of the ARC or another family support group will help keep you informed of these processes and changes. We've had a lot of changes resulting from the pandemic. Be in touch with an advocacy group, find other resources, find other families. Educate yourself. That's what you're doing on this session. Advocate for more waivers to be funded, and you do that by talking with your senator and your delegate in the General Assembly and tell your story. So we've talked about some of the resources. You can join the ARC, you can join local support groups. We're going to talk about the Medicaid CCC Plus Waiver in a minute. You have case management available. We mentioned the Housing Rental Assistance Program. We also mentioned the Individual and Family Support Program, and we're going to talk about employment type services through DARS and Centers for Independent Living. I want to make sure everybody is aware of the REACH program. This is a program for children and adults of all ages when they have a severe behavioral and or mental health crisis. It is a crisis support system. It has 24/7 crisis assessment and intervention. They have mobile direct services, outpatient counseling, crisis therapeutic homes, crisis intervention and prevention planning, and training for the family and support systems. If you go to the website that's on the slide, you can get a lot more information about that. You do not have to be waiting for a waiver. You do not have to have a waiver. You don't even have to be connected with a community services board to access REACH services. Some of you may have heard of the CCC Plus Medicaid waiver. That's the Commonwealth Care Plus Medicaid waiver. And it's a waiver that many people use while they are waiting for a DD waiver. This waiver has no waiting list. It serves people of any ages with a disability, and they must have a medical or nursing need. It has many fewer services than the DD waiver. The DD waiver has nearly 30 services. This has far fewer services, but it does have services like personal care, respite, companion, assistive technology, environmental modifications. To request a screening for the CCC Plus Medicaid waiver, contact your local Department of Social Services. The process for applying for a CCC Plus waiver is completely different from the DD waiver. So this is the Department of Social Services. It is not the Community Services Board. DARS, or the Virginia Department of Aging and Rehabilitation Services, provides a very wide range of employment and other related services for individuals with any disability. They start working with individuals as young as age 14. If you are in high school or middle school, you would want to be getting connected with them. So you can go to the website there and see the many types of services that they have available that are primarily related to employment and postgraduate education, helping people become more independent once they leave school. But again, it's for people of any ages. The next service that we're going to look at is called the Centers for Independent Living, or CILS for short. CILS are located around Virginia. They are private nonprofit organizations, and they provide services such as peer support, information and referral, individual and systems advocacy, independent living skills training, transition services for people who are leaving a facility to move into the community. There is their website right there that you can access. And it is for people with a wide variety of disabilities. You don't have to have a developmental disability necessarily. We talked about the Individual and Family Support Program earlier, or IFSP. This is only for people who are on the DD waiver wait list. Once you have a waiver, you're not eligible for this funding. There's an annual application period. It's first come, first serve, and you should sign up if you're interested to get their program updates so you know when the application period is going to be open. Housing, we also mentioned that earlier. That's available for people once they get on the waiver wait list, and it's available for people when they have a developmental disabilities waiver, and it provides funding for rental assistance. You start with your CSB case manager, and sometimes people who are actually on the waiver wait list have enough other supports, maybe through the CCC Plus or natural supports, where they are in a position where they can move into an independent living situation. That means away from your parents or grandparents, and begin living on their own. There's also flexible funding. This is a set of money which is available to assist with moving costs, providing furnishings, things like that. And you see the link on there where you can find oodles of information on the DBHDS website. There are all kinds of disability-specific organizations. So if you have a specific diagnosis, you might want to get connected with some of these organizations. If you have autism, there's the Autism Societies, Down Syndrome Associations, brain injury groups, epilepsy. So we have gone through a lot of information pretty quickly, and it can be kind of overwhelming. So you may have questions. We welcome those questions and welcome being able to help you find what the services are through the waiver, getting through this waiver process. So please feel free to contact us at the ARC of Virginia. Again, our email is up there, or you may call us directly. Thank you. I hope you learned something new out of all this information.